Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Thank you for coming. My name's Amy Draves, and I'm here to welcome Mel Carson to the Microsoft Research Visiting Speaker Series. Mel is here today to discuss his book, Pioneers of Digital: Success Stories from the Leaders in Advertising, Marketing, Search, and Social Media. In talking to fascinating innovators, including our very own Chi Lu, Mel and his co-author have defined the key ingredients and disciplines behind inspired digital phenomena. Mel is the founder of Delightful Communications, is a college lecturer, and a Microsoft veteran working for 7 years as a digital marketing evangelist. Please join me in giving him a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Amy, and hello, everyone. It's great to be back on campus today, especially as I get to bathe in the afterglow of the wonderful announcement yesterday by the Xbox team. I was watching online. As we say in England, I was all over it like a cheap shirt. And I think what the guys certainly at Microsoft Research have been doing to make that happen has been marvellous. I live in Seattle. I'm not from Seattle. I'm from London. I've been here for a couple of years. And I read a book, Pioneers of Digital. My background is essentially in the digital marketing industry. I started out in the year 2000 at a search engine called LookSmart that used to provide the search results to the search engine Alta Vista. This was kind of almost before the Googles of this world were around. And I joined Microsoft in 2005 to help launch Ad Center, which is now Bing Ads, so the paid search advertising that you now see on Bing, the kind of Google AdWords killer. I was there for 7 years. And my job essentially was to tell the Microsoft advertising story, tell the story about what we were doing in the digital marketing space out there in many places all around the world, including interviewing luminaries such as Sir Martin Sorrell, who heads up WPP, one of the biggest, if not the biggest advertising companies in the world. That was in Las Vegas, just before we went to see Steve Ballmer on stage, and that's me and Steve chatting just after he had got the Media Person of the Year at the Cannes Advertising Festival. So really my job has always been around storytelling. Last summer, it's okay, I'm cool with it. I was laid off as part of the marketing layoffs and took that as a sign and an opportunity to start my own business, which was quite a few months in the planning, called Delightful Communications. And essentially what I do now is play on the strengths that I built up while working at Microsoft around social media, strategy, digital PR, and personal branding. Now, being a storyteller on video and social media is one thing, but putting it down in the written word and a lot more than the 700, 800 words that you'll need for a blog post. I'd met this chap, Paul Springer. Dr. Paul Springer is my co-author. He is a professor of advertising, marketing, communications at Buckinghamshire College, in the Buckinghamshire University, I should say, in the UK. An academic that randomly had met my brother and his wife the day they got married on Palm Island in the Grenadines and became friends. I was introduced to him and found a like mind, especially within my family, because none of my family know or understand anything that I do. So it was nice to meet someone who did. He interviewed me for this book back in 2005 called Ads to Icons. It was basically about 200 case studies all about different digital marketing campaigns that had happened in the previous 5 to 10 years. And then I never heard from him again, until a couple of years ago when he rang me up and he said, I've been lurking. Well, he'd been following. What we say in social media is that he was a lurker, that he'd been following my career for a long while, not engaging, but following a career, and he'd essentially wanted me to help him write his next book. his idea was to call it Pioneers of Digital Advertising. And I had a little think about that, and I said, well, we're kind of narrowing the scope there, because there's more to digital than just advertising. There's social media, there's search. Advertising isn't just marketing. So why don't we broaden it to include all these different sorts of disciplines, which meant that we'd broaden the audience that the book would be for, but would also be able to talk to all sorts of different people, not just in the advertising space. So that's what we did with our publisher Kogan Page, who are based in the UK, but they have an office in Philadelphia and I think India as well. And we picked these 20. A lot of people ask how we picked the 20. Well, Paul came up with a list of his 20 and I came up with mine. All people that we admired, were gagging to speak to, knew that they had great stories but were kind of unsung heroes out there in the digital space. And I didn't know anybody on Paul's list and he didn't know any on mine. And there was this kind of weird moment where I thought to myself, why don't I know these people? Why does he think they're so great? They sound really interesting. And he did the same on mine. So we spent a few weeks backing and forthing. I'd moved over to Seattle by then, via email, placing the different characters into the book to really give it a really good flow between all the different disciplines. And what we now find, having now been published for a little over 6 months, is that many people kind of dip in because they know of Jaron Lanier and maybe Stephen Fry, the British actor. That's why they buy the book. But they can't put it down, because when they turn over, they suddenly see that there's June Cohen from TED, and they've not heard of her, and she sounds quite interesting. All the chapters are about 3,000 words, and they take about 20 minutes to read. We designed it specifically to make it really snackable content that you can just dip in and dip out as you wish. So what I'm going to do for the next kind of 35 minutes is just talk through a few of these pioneers and tell a few of their stories as a little bit of inspiration to you all. And then at the end, what we do is we distill down a lot of the learnings into 10 learnings from all these pioneers of how you can get ahead. Actually, not just through digital marketing and advertising, but in business in general. I've been asked now to speak at many conferences and lectures about the findings from the book and how that can translate into all sorts of areas of business. So this is Chi Lu. Everybody heard of Chi Lu? President of the Online Services Group. Now, you might not know, but Chi Lu was born in China to a very poor family. He was actually sent away by his parents to live with his grandfather because they couldn't afford to keep him. He desperately wanted to get into shipbuilding. That was the big, prestigious career back in those days in the 70s in China. But he couldn't, because he's only 50 kg. If you've ever met him, he's a very slight guy, and they had various hurdles that you had to get over, and he couldn't get over that one. He then thought, oh, I could go into chemistry or be a scientist. They said, no, your eyesight's too bad. So he was told, you can be, you can do computer science and work in a radio factory, or you can do mathematics and you can be a teacher. So his grandfather and his parents got together and they said, right, you're going to do computer science because you're going to be working in a radio factory. That was the kind of background he had, but he was always very studious and actually ended up at the Fundang University in Shanghai as a teacher. And it was there that a visiting professor from Carnegie Mellon came to give a talk, and she was very very active and engaging during the talk. And chap asked him afterwards, he said, you sound like you're the type of guy that should come over to America and do a scholarship, because I think that you'd learn a lot if we flew you over. And he said, well, I'd like to apply, but I can't. And he said, why? And he said, because the fee for the scholarship is $35, and I actually only earn about $10 a month as a teacher. So the Carnegie Mellon professor waived the fee, and kind of the rest is history, because he came to Carnegie Mellon, then he went to to IBM Research, where he worked on one of the very first search technologies called Harvester. And it was in Brisbane in, I think, 97, 98, where he saw Sergey and Larry from Google demonstrate one of the very first iterations of the Google project Backrub. And it was back at that time when the demo keyword that they used was Bill Clinton, because every other search engine popped up at the top of the search results, something to do with Monica Lewinsky, which was quite topical when we were talking about this around the presidential race in November. And with Google, it came up and it was a government site. So he did a lot with that, and then moved over to Silicon Valley because that's where everything was happening at that time. I remember saying to him, "Did you ever think when you're in that room with Google that they were going to become so all-encompassing and be this huge behemoth that they are now?" And he said no, because there was a lot going on at the time in Silicon Valley. So it was even back in those days that this internet thing, no one really thought that it was going to be as big and massive as it actually was. He then went to Yahoo and helped set up Yahoo Shopping. The story goes that he had a couple of interns or a couple of contractors that helped him with that. And he worked day and night and got repetitive strain injury in his arm and had to wear a brace because of all his coding. But he set that up, and he worked there for many, many years, about 10 years, and in all sorts of different areas except search. And then, as history has it, he was going to leave. He left Yahoo, and he got a knock on the door, and it was Steve Ballmer saying, "Wait, you want to come over here and help us out on the old search bit?" And so that's where he turned up. The thing about Chi, and why he's kind of been so successful or is so inspirational, is because he had a very sort of Zen-like image over at Yahoo, and I've met him a couple of times, and he certainly has an aura about him. But people that work very closely with him, like Stephen Weitz, who's the Bing evangelist, do find that not only does he have the vision of where Bing and what he calls the civics, the digital civics, is going, but he has also thought about the steps that you need to get there. So as a leader, he does this really great thing of not just being the big picture guy, but being able to know where everything else fits on, which is really from a lot of the research that we've done, quite a rare thing, that a leader like that has actually thought about everything and actually puts those objections to bed very quickly. And it really does inspire people. I think that the way that he carries himself with this kind of... We asked everybody at the end, what advice do you give people about where you think the world should be going when it comes to business? Or when you wake up in the morning, what advice would you give people that want to get ahead? And he says this very, very grand gesture that, can you work having a greater impact, making life greater for other people? Are you able to work with people so you become a better person every day? If you can answer yes, then that's a good day. And I put this picture up there because obviously a lot of what Mark Zuckerberg's doing and the guys at Facebook, and there's obviously, a lot of synergies there, which we find fascinating. So that was Chi. Who here hasn't seen a TED Talk? No, I thought you'd all... So who's seen more than 10? More than 20? Yep. So TED, as many of you may know, used to be very behind closed doors, fee-paying, well, it still is, when you actually show up to go and see the actual talks. But back in 2005, this lady, June Cohen, who had been going there a lot, she was asked to help open up the TED Talks to the world. She had an editorial background at Stanford Press. She was one of the first people to use online video on the internet. Just down the road were the guys from Apple, and they managed to get a copy of QuickTime and put these little videos of some of the Stanford University rowers, I think it was, or runners at one of the Olympic Games back in the early 90s, actually up online. She was behind Hotwired, or worked at Hotwired, and she was behind WebMonkey, which was the online resource for HTML developers and people that are wanting to get into web design. And she wrote a book about the internet and was thinking, I might get into writing, and moved over to New York for a bit, and then decided that, you know what, she would keep going to these TED Talks as she was going. But she got a call from Chris Anderson, who ran the talks, and he said, actually the story was that she hadn't subscribed to the latest one, so he wanted to have a chat with her about that, and sat her down and said, I want to open these talks up to the world, and I want you to put them on TV. And she said, really? He said, yes, TV's the place to go. And this was back in 2005. So she got together a plan, and then she went out to all the TV channels and the networks, and they all slammed the door on her. Basically said, no, this is too boring, this is too dull, no one's ever going to sit through 20 minutes of this, we won't be able to sell any advertising on it. And when BBC 4 said, I'm sorry, this is a little bit too dry and dull for us, she knew that she was not onto a winner there. But she was not to be bowed, she was not to be outdone. So she went back to her roots. She went from 2005 back to 1991, 92. This was just when YouTube was coming to the fray, and the technology of uploading massive amounts of video and managing to stream it across the internet was doing so well, and when Google were buying them. So she thought, well, let's try this online video. She met up with a guy called Wishnow, who she had worked with previously, and they put together a plan for recording those TED Talks. Now when you go and see a TED Talk, or you watch it online, you probably don't know, but in the last 8 years they've experimented so much that there are up to 8 different cameras recording the action at any one time. Next time you watch a TED Talk, see if there's anyone at the beginning saying, yeah, it's really nice to be here, oh yeah, it was a bit raining, sorry I'm late. They don't have any of that. They cut straight to the start. There's a little collapse, and then it's straight to the person talking. There is no coughs, there is no ifs, there is no buts, there's no stumbles. It is all edited so tightly that all you can do is lean forward. All you can do is stick there with your eyes stuck and glued to the screen. And it's those kind of techniques that have made the TED Talk so successful. What's been incredible about the book is many of the people in it that maybe own ad agencies, people like Jazz Ahmed from AKQA, they have done the whole Nike Plus, Nike Fuel Band advertising. They've been bought by WPP. The whole thing is still moving. This is very much a history book. And when I was talking to June on the phone, I said to her, what's going to be your greatest achievement? And she said, when we hit that 1 billion mark. And this was kind of last February, so about 15 months ago, 16 months ago. And in November, they hit 1 billion views across YouTube. What she talks about is, when it comes to testing digital, is to make sure that you're starting off slowly and that you're planning and testing and iterating. And that's why you suddenly see the podcast on iTunes, and now they've extended the reach onto Roku and Boxy, and I would not be surprised if there's something going on with Xbox, with the new Xbox as well. But what was incredible to see a couple of weeks ago, or it may have been last week, was finally they got to TV. I don't know if you saw on PBS, I think Bill Gates was doing a talk as well. So full circle, 8 years later, she finally gets to that goal via 1 billion views on YouTube. So it's a great, great story. Vanessa Fox, very local to here, announced this morning that she's actually sold a startup that she's been working on for a couple of years. She started off at Microsoft, not at Microsoft, at Google. Way back in 2005, she joined them, having been a developer and having been into marketing. Very much around search engine optimization. When she joined Google, I don't know if any of you guys are up on your SEO, but she was asked to come up with a plan for basically submitting websites to Google so that it would be easy for them to crawl them. The plan, ironically, was that Google would tell all webmasters, just upload the details of your website, and then we don't have to actually crawl it. So we can save millions and millions and millions of dollars without ever needing to crawl the web, which is crazy now when you think about it. What was interesting about Vanessa was she didn't live in Mountain View. She actually lived in Seattle and was out of the Kirkland office. And when she knocked on the doors down there to all the developers saying, hey, we're going to do this webmaster community and we want to open out Google and really talk to the community and get their feedback, they were all computer scientists. She was the first product manager at Google that didn't have a computer science degree. I think she had an English degree. They were all like, we don't talk to the users and the webmasters. They just want to create all this spam, and if we give them too many secrets, they're going to create all this stuff, and then our users are going to run away and all this kind of stuff. What Shiva, her boss, said about this particular project was that it was an experiment that will either fail miserably or succeed beyond our wildest dreams in making the web better for webmasters and users alike. I can't imagine anyone at Microsoft coming out on a blog post in 2005 saying, we're going to do this thing and it could fail. What was great about what Google did in that time was actually start showing a little bit of transparency that they had lacked up until that point. What Vanessa then did was basically start communicating with people internally to get them to use the impact and influence, which is obviously a Microsoft competency, to basically get these developers to do what she wanted them to do, which was provide a little bit of transparency for webmasters and people that own their websites and wanted to market them efficiently, so that those people would actually do the work for the Google engineers. She went in and said to the people that crawled all the titles and descriptions, what's your biggest problem? He said, well, when we crawl a website and there are no titles and descriptions, and then we have to do this thing and it costs us this, and we get all these tickets and it costs us this amount of money, and people calling up on the phone and via the thing. She said, well, why don't you have some indication which, you know, pops up on an email saying, hey, owner of pioneersofdigital.com, you have 4 pages that don't have titles and descriptions, and then they'll go in and add them because they know that they're not being indexed. They said, that's a great idea. So that's what she did, very, very basically. She spent time with colleagues and partners in different departments, and her advice was to really try and understand what they do, how to speak their language. It'll help when it comes to communicating ideas and having empathy with their thinking. Very, very basic, and actually quite a bit of common sense. But what she managed to do was turn the attitude of the Google engineers around to face one way, and the attitude of the webmasters to face in, so that they actually started having a dialogue. And they smashed their target of getting sitemaps uploaded. Sergey had a bet that if they got to this, they won't tell me the numbers, meanies, but it was many, 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 many thousands. When they got to this point, her whole team could go off on a holiday in Bermuda, and they did. Nice if you can get it. Who had one of these?
Going back one and asking a question, I don't want to break your flow, but in what way did it change? I mean, I'm missing it. I'm not as familiar with the Webmaster Tools. So in what way did it move?
So originally Webmaster Tools was a list of guidelines that said you must do this, you mustn't do this, you mustn't do this, you mustn't do this. And what she did was grow a community and actually have a two-way dialogue with forums, with experts from Google. It's kind of like, you know, what Microsoft does now in the developer community, and actually have experts from within Google helping people to be better at better at optimizing their websites, so that they were essentially cleaner, and Google was able to rank them more highly. So Atari computers, and I must say the caveat, he had nothing to do with this. But the the correlation between what this gentleman was doing working with that and this, you cannot dispute, but it's Jaron Lanier. Who's heard of Jaron Lanier? From Microsoft Research. He's part of the Extreme Computing Group, not just the computing group, the Extreme Computing Group. He's the father of virtual reality. And he had done a couple of talks at Microsoft advertising events about his thoughts on advertising and social media. Absolutely fascinating gentleman for many, many reasons. A couple of the more interesting ones were, this is actually him. He was the subject of Lawnmower Man, the movie, which came out, I think it was in the 90s. Pierce Brosnan played him. Can you see the similarity? No, neither can Jaron. He finds it all a little weird and wonderful. But then he advised Steven Spielberg on many of those futuristic things that you see in the Minority Report. He lived for many years in New Mexico. His best friend, or one of his best friends, when he used to walk home from school, he used to make telescopes with the man that discovered Pluto. He was a goat herder and used to make goat's cheese and stuff, and really started getting into this whole notion of virtual reality through a few crazy things that happened with his little village, well, the town where he lived, but also through his work at Atari and beyond. A few years ago, he wrote this book, and this was kind of the subject of why we wanted to talk to him, was You Are Not a Gadget, where he calls... He was a founding father of the internet, and he was there when it was all happening. And now he's starting to call into question some of the kind of algorithms that the Facebooks of this world and some of the social network sites are doing, creating this kind of big brain that the whole world should be working off this big algorithm, and it should all be crowdsourced, and everybody, it should be all, made out of all this data and whatnot. He's very much against this and calls these guys cybernetic totalists. His whole mantra is that for the kids of today that are out there, I have a 20-month-old daughter, and in a few years, or many years I hope, when she wants to set up her Facebook page, she's going to have to tick a few boxes, and it's going to have to say, I like widgets. It can't say, I like widgets on a Thursday and I like pink widgets on a Saturday. He's essentially saying that all this profiling and data profiling is actually putting people in boxes and stifling creativity. It's an absolutely fascinating book. I couldn't read it. I had to listen to it. It absolutely made my brain bleed, trying to get to grips with some of the arguments that he came out with. But his whole kind of vision on the dangers of what social media and these algorithms are doing is now even going a lot further. If you do a search for his name and his new book, which is Who Owns the Future, he's going even a step further, actually saying that, and he actually talks about it in the book, that we all deserve to get a little bit of payment back from Facebook, micropayments, for us having seen that ad, and it should all add up, and we should somehow be being paid, and Google should be paying us as well. Nice if you can get it, but he's been interviewed all over the shop. What I drew from this as a marketer was very much Hugh MacLeod talking here, the Web 2.0 thing you built and you didn't actually increase sales. With social media and some of these whizzo gadgets and whatnot, people are kind of jumping on them without actually thinking about the outcome. They're not actually thinking about what is it that I want people to do, what action do I want them to take, how do I want them to feel, how is this going to be part of their life and part of their personal brand going forwards. And I pull this out at a lot of marketing conferences to say that, you guys all jump on and you say, oh, we got this, wouldn't it be cool if, that's one of my pet hates. in a brainstorming meeting, wouldn't it be cool if, because it normally means that it wouldn't actually be cool for the end user, it would just be a cool little project for that team to do, but it would probably be a waste of money. He's such a visionary. People were already calling out on Twitter how the Xbox announcement yesterday was starting to make things like Minority Report come to fruition. This whole notion of this is where the Tom Cruise character is walking through a store and he's getting advertised at. This is kind of already happening. Well, there's a little bit actually in Xbox already branding and advertising in there, but it's very, very carefully and well thought out. But companies like Disney have started doing this as well. This is, again, another evolution after the book was published of things that people said in the book were going to happen. And at Disney, RFID bands that kind of take in your profile and what rides you like and what food you've bought and all this kind of stuff, and start building up a kind of a profile of who you are. So you can use digital advertising and marketing in order to provide relevant and useful experiences, as opposed to what we all hate as kind of the pop-ups and spam of the old days. This is him talking at the IAB Mix event a couple of years ago, and he talked about his daughter, who is a lot older than mine actually, where he put a challenge out there. I mean, there was Coca-Cola there was Facebook, there was GM, everybody, and he just said, he put out a challenge and he said, there is no such thing as passive perception. Young people today will remember our media as quaint, cute, but not fully engaged. And that's where the marketing industry and the advertising industry really see the future of this. And if you're on Facebook and you take a look at some of the ads that are supposed to be relevant to you today, you can see that we've got a long, long way to go. This chap, he's just turned 30, and he already sold Blue Lithium to Yahoo for, I think it was $300 million 5 or 6 years ago. Gurbaksh Chahal. Paul Springer wrote this chapter, but I happened to meet him down in Cannes, and my little anecdote was, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're in the Carlton Hotel. There's all these advertising executives and young things, and they're all drinking these huge, great big things of rosé, like this, all taking photos, all getting uploaded to Facebook and whatnot. And this guy's not yet 30, and he said the presidential election in 20 years' time will be decided by social media. And I thought, he's not very smart, is he? How did he... We're just about to enter, the next election. Of course it's about social media. I thought, how did he get $300 million? He said, no. He said, all these people taking photos and everything, that's all getting uploaded to the internet. And in 20 years' time, when they're running for office, those photos will be there somewhere. Someone will have copied and pasted or downloaded, and someone will have that. And they'll be able to look back and say, you know what? You did this, this, and this 20 years ago, and it was all because of social media. What was interesting is in the UK, a young girl about 14 years old was asked by the government, or it was either the government or a local council, to be a social media czar. A young person. They thought, we get this young person in, she knows what she's doing and she can be a role model and an inspiration. It took about 2 hours for the press to find racist, defamatory and sexy comments that this 14-year-old girl had written on her Facebook and Twitter page, and she got sacked immediately. So that was just a tiny window of 2 hours where someone gets into office not thinking about how social media can affect their future life and their career, and 2 hours later she's already out. He's young, and he's always ahead of the curve. He was doing pay-per-click advertising before 2000, so kind of just before Google. He was doing behavioural targeting before everybody else, and then this is a social advertising platform that he's built. He's getting a lot of PR out there. He's very, very passionate about people that just think, oh, it's the internet. There's different business models out there. One of the big takeaways for the book, though, was around originality, and a lot of the pioneers talk about this, but he was very much about the fact that you don't have to be original to get ahead. You can just pivot around an existing idea, and if you can be better, quicker, faster, more agile, and more creative, then you can be really successful. And I read the article, I think it was Fortune magazine. Jeff Bezos, I think it was Fortune or Forbes, became the Fortune Man of the Year last year. And when they were talking to him, he said exactly the same thing. If you think about a lot of the products and services that Amazon are trotting out, he says, you know, we don't copy people. We look at something and we think, well, that's quite interesting. You know, how can we add our own flavour to it? And how can we add our own colour to it? And how can we do it quicker, faster, more agile and more successfully? So that whole idea about being original was really important, and a through line throughout the entire book. As is business is business. Just because it's online doesn't mean that it's any different than any other business. That, you know, he sees businesses failing all the time. Online businesses that have no revenue, and yet they're being valued for, you know, $1 billion, or sold for $1 billion. Instagram, anyone. Avinash Kaushik, there's just a couple more. Avinash Kaushik, now at Google. My favourite story with him is how he was taking a photo, stupidly, of a government building in Dubai, and a soldier put a gun to his head and said, "Praise Allah." And he said, "What?" He said, "Say praise Allah." And he said, "No, I'm not going to," because he's obviously Indian. And he said, "Say praise Allah." And he looked the guy in the eye, and he was fearing for his life. And he said, "No, I'm not going to." And he said now that experience has been a part of his life, he has absolutely no problem walking into the CMO office of Fortune 500 companies and talking as Google's digital marketing evangelist, letting them know that they are missing a massive opportunity with some of the work that they're doing online. He calls it, as I said, the magnificent opportunity that online presents businesses, and that so many of them are getting it wrong, or at least not starting in the right direction. He has a blog called Occam's Razor, which he claims has as many subscribers as Google's. Yes, he did say that. Whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. He's got many, many subscribers. He's written Web Analytics an Hour a Day, and a couple of other books. He gives all the profits away to charity, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But he's all about testing. When he started his blog, what he did was he tested it internally with his team, but also with his wife, because he wanted to do these three things. That he wanted to produce something that was incredible, relevant, and of value. And it's a bit like, well, any product testing, but certainly any marketing testing. Nowadays, the kind of end goal of any brand is to be delightful, to actually rise head and shoulders above other brands that are doing similar things online, as digital starts taking more and more of the focus away from, you know, real world media and print, etc. He has just had a very blessed career. He was given the opportunity to speak at a conference, and he got up. He has lots of pictures of his kids on there, and if you ever get the chance to see him, he's a very gregarious, very funny guy. And he went to do a talk at Google, and they literally just came up to him and said, "We'll give you a job." And he said, "To do what?" And they said, "We don't know, but we just want you to work here," which he still is. He has a couple of other side projects, but he's well in demand all over the world, but has definitely been the pioneer over trying to take web analytics and the understanding of what matters on the web and how to get the best out of it, and translating that into you know, words and syllables that we can all understand and identify with, especially those CMOs who are seeing it from 50, 100,000 feet. The last pioneer is Stephen Fry. Who's heard of Stephen Fry? The British actor. I met him through Twitter, actually, via the England rugby captain, who came to speak at an event of ours, and we got him, Steve Clayton, who's the Microsoft storyteller here, and he came to the office and we sat down. He'd always been into Apple, but he didn't like that moniker of being an Apple fanboy. He's always into biodiversity and technology. And Steve and I sat him down in a conference room in London and showed him a few demos, and he left saying, "I'm going to tweet my arse off about this," and said he'd immediately in his cab on his way home, he was tweeting. He only had 750,000 followers back then. He now has nearly 6 million on Twitter. But that was kind of how we met, and then we persuaded him to turn up at the opening of the launch of the Windows Phone in London, and got masses of press because he was literally very, very impressed with the Windows Phone. He's also bipolar, and how he got onto online was he had a blog, but he also did a lot of TV shows, and he did a TV show about his being bipolar, and he got something like 5,000 letters a week to his agent. So that's when he went online and was constantly iterating on how he communicated with his fans and people that wanted a piece of him. But now, because of his whole Twitter foray, he actually gets people, the kind of responsibility that he has is absolutely huge, in that he does get people threatening to commit suicide if he doesn't reply, or if he doesn't give them a kind of virtual pat on the head, as he calls it. He first got into Twitter when he first got a Twitter account. This guy here on the right is his business partner, who's kind of driving force behind what he does in digital. He saw a video where it said, "Oh, well, I'm in a cafe," and he thought, "Wow, that's rubbish." And what he does with technology, he puts it in a virtual drawer until it becomes relevant and of use to him. And he was doing a documentary, Last Chance to See, which is about nearly extinct animals across Africa. No Wi-Fi, no internet connection, no nothing. So he had a phone, and he'd use Twitter to text tweets and photos and whatever across. And while he was going across Africa, he had 5,000 followers, and then he'd take off and go to another country, and he'd land and he'd have 10,000 followers, and then 40,000 followers, all because people started following him and watching him, talking about these animals and doing some photos. So that was where it became of use to him. And then he got stuck in a lift on the 26th floor, took this photo, it went viral. The next day it was front page headlines on many websites, and he really couldn't understand what all the fuss was. But the New York Times did say that this photo did more for the profile of Twitter and helped Twitter out more than the photo of Demi Moore's bottom that was tweeted by her husband about a month ago. So he was very much an early adopter of the technology, and obviously now with nearly 6 million followers has been doing amazing things. He's the last chapter in the book, because we know that some people wanted to buy the book just to read about his kind of backstory, and this is kind of the last sentence of all the pioneers, where he said, you've got to enjoy it. It's all very well extracting trends and disciplines and key learnings, but at the end of the day, it's all about enjoying it. You have to love it. You absolutely have to love it. Just enjoy the ride. Enjoy what creativity it gives you, and what you've got to be driven by is what effing fun it is and how unbelievably exciting it is. He is very, very up and happy when it comes to thinking about the internet and the power and the opportunities that it provides. So here are just a few of the kind of pioneering DNA, just to go through the some of the takeaways. One of them, don't let technology dictate the idea. It's got to be a great idea. People say, oh, we've got to make this go viral on Twitter. No, it could go viral on something else if it's a great idea. Don't focus on the technology. Don't focus on the channel, but the idea, the outcome, how you want to try and make someone feel, what action you want them to take. Challenge creativity. What that kind of means is when the Burger King subservient chicken advert happened, a few years ago, and that was basically where you tap online and you'd say to this chicken, jump up and down, and it would do whatever you wanted it to do. Burger King were like, oh no, they nearly tore that campaign down because somebody didn't think it was particularly creative. But obviously people did, because it was hugely successful. And what we now have with digital is, as Avinash Kaushik talks about, the opportunity to fail really fast. So you can fail really fast. Okay, great idea, might not work for some people, let's try it. Testing. And actually saying, okay, that didn't work. Because you can set up, a Bing Ads account or a Google AdWords account, and within 20 minutes know whether you're ranking number one, how many click-throughs you've got, and how many sales you're getting. It's really easy nowadays with digital, if you get the infrastructure right, to plan stuff, fail fast, learn from it, iterate, move on. The whole Oreo biscuit picture during the Super Bowl, did you all see that? When they tweeted this photo, everybody's like, oh, that's amazing. To me, yeah, of course they should be there with their creative team when they're spending millions of dollars on a TV commercial in the most televised sporting event in the world. They need to have that kind of agility and to think and test and just try something and see if it works. Make things that satisfy needs, that kind of goes back to the technology. Got to be careful about the so what factor. This starts from just writing a simple blog post to then creating any experience online and through digital. Is what did it do for me? What segment did we go after? What need did we satisfy? Taking decisions in real time. Again, the Oreo answer. I think I remember from my Microsoft days, there was always the thing about we've got to try and capitalise on outside opportunities. And that sometimes in businesses, if they're not structured right to be able to say, yes, we can do this really quickly and turn around an idea in a day, if not an hour, sometimes your competitors will be ahead of you if they've got that kind of communication structure in place. You don't have to be original, just relevant, not copying, but pivoting, being agile, taking an existing idea and making it better and taking it to market and being quicker and smarter about it. And then finally, having fun. I've had an enormous amount of fun writing this book with Paul. It was fairly interesting going backwards and forwards over Skype over the 2 or 3 months that it took to write once we'd done all the interviews, and we've been really thrilled by the reaction that we've had from people from USA Today. I've highlighted a few keywords up there: compelling, fascinating, contagious, inspirational, and I particularly like the bit readers will feel like kids in a digital candy shop. It's on Kindle right now, 99 cents. Hello. Not making much of a profit there. For anyone in the room, I've got these little takeaways. I was very, very pleased that Harold from the Trends Council invited me, or suggested to Amy that I come and talk. I appreciate the fact that you've spent your lunch hour over here listening to me talk about the book. And all of you online, thank you very much. And that's me, but I would welcome many questions.
What I expected is actually some trends you've seen, per se, as to how they approach problems and what they think about it, as opposed to very individual and somewhat unique and different stories. So what are the commonalities, or what are the trends, or what are the things that you've seen?
These.
There
are 10 lessons at the end of the book, where we distilled the feedback from all the different pioneers that talk about these different extracts, and those are the trends. You've got to remember, these are about individuals. What we didn't want to do was write a book about Facebook or about Google or about how to do social media or how to do digital. It was about the people and what were the levers and the triggers within them. And when you read, which I hope you will, you will read the different business problems that they came over. And for each story, there's 3 or 4 that sit in the taking decisions in real time bucket. There's 3 or 4 that certainly sit in the making things that satisfy needs. But also the decisions in real time. John Windsor, who has this crowdsourcing creative company.
They seem like 101 and like tickets to entry, not like, wow, okay, these are...
Yeah, and I would love to see Avinash standing up here telling you the names of the businesses that don't get the 101s right. Because when I talk to Chi about, where he sees the future of the internet, he wouldn't be rude enough to say that's a stupid question, but he inferred that, we've only scratched the surface. People still don't really know what they're doing. Many businesses don't. When it comes to really harnessing the power. And you can see that certainly when, there was some research yesterday about teenagers now on Facebook. They can't be bothered with all the drama, and all the news stories and everything. And that's why they're going off to Vine and Path, because it's instant 6-second gratification. Try translating that to the 56, 60-year-old CMO to actually say, we've got to stop doing this now, we've got to do that. Oh, well, I had a 6-year plan and all this kind of stuff. It's all changing, the rules have changed. So, yeah, for many people they might be 101 or a little bit simplistic, but you'd be amazed how many people and how many businesses fail at this first fence. Question on the line.
As we think about our marketing plans for next fiscal year, in particular digital marketing and social, what specific recommendations do you have to win the hearts of BDMs, students, teachers, governments, and corporate accounts?
I think where Microsoft does a really good job is in that one-to-one kind of engagement. I think that for social media per se, it needs to be integrated into the whole, the overall messaging and the overall marketing strategy. Part of the reason for that is traditionally, and it's really evolved at Microsoft to a really good level, but traditionally it was kind of social media, we don't really understand that, that's over there and it's kind of over there. And we'll get a couple of interns or young people because they understand that all kind of stuff. But this is the serious marketing over here. And what we're slowly seeing is social media being integrated, but also when people spend these massive amount of money on these big branding efforts, it's about thinking about that brand voice and how that translates down into the essence of that 140 character reply to someone saying, I want to buy the new Xbox, can you tell me where to get it, type thing. And I think that from my experience as an evangelist and being the face of Microsoft advertising, which wasn't official, but I was just out there doing what I was doing and using social media to do it. I think having a hybrid approach between the actual brand and individuals really helps, because having that one-to-one communication with a real human being can really endear the brand to an audience, especially on that one-to-one level, because that we're all social media now. We're here in this room, talking, and I'll pick up a couple of business cards maybe, and we'll follow each other online. But we've now got a relationship which is social in the real sense. I don't know whether people have been tweeting online, but I'll be responding when I go back there. And with many people, I'll be saying, hey, come on, let's meet up, let's go for coffee. It's just really important to think of social media and digital as as part of the all up, but really start thinking about that brand essence, because far too much social media outreach has been very tactical and not either integrated or really thinking about that brand voice and how that translates into getting your audience to talk about your brand positively through word of mouth. Any more?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
You were talking about failing fast, and it made me wonder if somebody's...
you get a book for asking a question.
made me wonder if people studied sort of how long the memory is on social media. If you take a risk and you try out some sort of ad campaign or a social media strategy and it fails, how long do people remember that? And what is the risk of trying something there?
I think that would be really, really good research to do, because, you know, when I see, oh, British Airways have done this, or I think it was Epicurious did it around the Boston bombings, I think I've read this right, that they had auto set up a whole load of tweets about Boston because it was over that weekend, and they hadn't cancelled them, and then it looked really bad and all this kind of stuff. I think, I'm not sure that memories are that long as people fess up immediately and say, look, you know, we screwed up, we're really sorry about that. Because, you know, brands have never had the opportunity to be as transparent as that and actually get people to think, did they just say sorry? You know, this is the first, you know, because in the old days, when something went bad, you used to write a letter, you know, and you used to go in and you used to get a couple of vouchers back for whatever it was, and someone would say, well, we're terribly sorry that you had this and all that kind of stuff. But now you get that instant gratification. Some people hide behind, you know, their handles and whatever on the web, but I think as long as people fess up and just say, you know, all right, we screwed up, and then really start working back to regain that trust, you know, they'll hopefully never do it again. But it just makes them work harder and more in real time to, you know, create that environment where their brand can be thought of in a positive light, online and through digital.
If I could just ask, when you ask that question, are you talking about social media or social networking memory? Because in your answer, what you're essentially indicating is that the response to a failure and the apology would remain in the social network for as long as 30 years. Well,
I think what he was saying is, let's say a brand, Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, they're in trouble right now, but, you know, they do something bad and then everybody unfollows them. You know, how long is that going to stay in people's memory that they necessarily did a bad thing, or they said something that they shouldn't? I'm not sure.
It actually seems like it's the opposite of the...
or Bing it.
Yeah, the opposite of the politician situation. So the politicians you were talking about, if they make a mistake, that might actually haunt them for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Whereas with the brand, it almost seems like it's big news for a week or two, and then nobody remembers that it actually happened. Nobody actually cares to go back.
Maybe that's because it's a brand and not an individual. I'll have to think about that. That's one of the best questions I've had. Thank you.
When you think about like Yelp and how damaging things that have happened years ago, you know, they stay on Yelp. You read the history of things, and including that in the responses that the company has made, and just, I mean, that in itself has made me go away from, you know, and choose people based on what's on Yelp and like kind of.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great example about. I work with a brand right now that when you type in their their brand term, a Yelp review comes up, or a review where someone has posted something positive at the end of a negative thread from about 9 years ago, and for some reason Google's now ranked it number 5, and they're like, how do I get rid of this? I think that people are starting to get a little more savvy and be able to read between the lines of some of these reviews and think, well, that was pretty short. They're not an Amazon, they're not a verified purchaser of this particular product. And let's click on their profile. Oh, what they're doing is they're going and slating all the Vietnamese restaurants in Seattle. There's something a bit dodgy there, so I'm going to discount that. I think that people are getting a lot more savvy, which is why, digital and social is meaning that brands need to be more transparent and really think about. I was talking to a lady the other day who was saying that even as recently as 3 years ago, she was working with a very big brand who said, we want you to go in and delete all these reviews on all these sites, because they can't say that about our product. And she was saying, well, it's true. It was a terrible product, that version. Now it's better. Why can't you just let that lie, make a really, really great product, and make more people talk about that product so that those bad reviews get pushed down? That's the ecosystem that we're dealing with now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.